The worst ever teams in Premier League history. To concede 89 goals during the course of a single 38-match Premier League season, running a shameful run of 20 consecutive Premier League losses. Oh, you haven't seen anything yet. Just wait for this one. Finishing a campaign in the Premier League, winning only 11 points. Yes, champions are known for their wins and trophies, and everyone is familiar with them. But do you know these mind-blowing facts about the weakest teams? In today's episode, we will explore the top 10 worst teams in the Premier League. However, we will not use strictly the stats from a single season, but also the overall performance they have played in the English top division. Also, before we continue, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, guys. 10. Swindon Town, 1993-94. We start strong with Swindon in number 10. The team from the middle of England have only made one appearance in the Premier League, and it is safe to say that it was a complete disaster. Well, it's kind of a positive memory for their fans to this day, because it wasn't just their first time in the Premier League in 1993. Swindon Town were promoted to the top flight for the first time in their history. But they had to wait more than 3 months for their first Premier League win. Yes, the victory over QPR, along with draws against the likes of Liverpool and Man United, gave the Swindon fans something to cheer about. But this was a rare treat for them in 93-94. In the end, they finished 22nd in the table with 30 points and one of the most unflattering records in football. Swindon Town conceded 100 goals, a record that remains unbeaten at the time of writing. It is worth noting, however, that Sheffield United have the potential to break the record this season, having conceded 88 goals with 5 games remaining. 9. QPR, 2012-13. On paper, there are teams that have finished the season with fewer points than QPR in 2012-13, but the names they had that season, QPR definitely deserve a place on our list. Having survived relegation by a point the season before, despite losing to Man City in the dramatic end to the 2011-2012 campaign, QPR brought in some impressive players. Champions League winners like Jose Bosingwa and Julio Cesar, Ryan Nelson, Rob Green, Park Ji-sung and Esteban Granero were just some of the names that arrived at Loftus Road. But that wasn't all. After struggling in the first half of the season and even swapping Mark Hughes for Harry Redknapp, QPR also bought Loic Remy and Jermaine Genius in a bid to avoid relegation. But in the end, they failed. Redknapp was more successful than Hughes, but he couldn't turn around a season that had already ended for QPR, who finished bottom with 25 points and a goal difference of -30, 14 points behind 17th place Sunderland. Number 8. Fulham, 2018-19. Next up, we have the Fulham side of the 2018-19 season, who were expected to return to the Premier League with a bang after 4 consecutive seasons in the second tier. Indeed, they had everything they needed to succeed and maintain their elite status for years to come. A good manager in Slavica Jukanovic, and some quality players like Alexander Mitrovic, Andre Schürrle, Zambo Anguissa, Timothy Fosu-Mensah and Ryan Sessegnon. They spent a staggering $100 million on acquisitions, but failed to get the job done. After winning just 1 game by mid-November, Jukanovic was replaced by Claudio Ranieri, who did little to improve the situation. 3 wins in his 17 games in charge. Then, in February, the Cottagers were led by a third manager in a single season, Scott Parker. After his appointment, Fulham showed signs of improvement, going on a good run of 3 wins in the last 5 games, but to no avail. The Londoners finished 19th with the worst defence in the league, 81 goals conceded. 7. Ipswich, 1994-95. 94-95, one of the most memorable seasons in the history of the Premier League. Firstly, this was the last campaign in the English top flight featuring 22 teams. Secondly, it was the only season in the history of the Premier League in which 4 teams were relegated. But last but not least, Blackburn, led by their biggest star in history, Alan Shearer, sensationally won the title. Yes, those are some of the highlights the fans associate with 94-95, but they shouldn't overlook the fact that the season produced one of the weakest teams in the history of English football, Ipswich. They started the campaign poorly, but a win over Man United in September, which arguably cost the Red Devils the Premier League title, lifted Ipswich's spirits. However, their momentum was short-lived as they soon slipped back into the relegation zone. In all, Ipswich finished the season in 22nd place with 27 points and 93 goals conceded. Curiously, around 10% of those goals were scored by Man United, who took their revenge in March with 9 goals at Old Trafford. 6. Watford, 99-2000 and 21-22. In 6, we have 2 contenders. The Watford teams of 99-2000 and 21-22. It is fair to say that the former had many positives and played well against the big teams, but their disastrous performances against the underdogs dragged them down to the Championship. The first Hornets team in our list had a tight defence and started the season well, with back-to-back wins over Liverpool and Bradford in August, followed by a stunning victory over Chelsea in September. From then on, however, they just won 3 games in 8 months and were relegated with the lowest points tally in the Premier League in the 20th century, 24. On the other hand, the 21-22 season broke the record for the worst Watford team we have ever seen, picking up only 23 points over the course of the season. 3 different coaches were in charge: Xisco Munoz, Claudio Ranieri, and Roy Hodgson, each bagging 2 wins. Number 5. Sheffield United, 2020-21. The 2021 season is one that many people associate with Sheffield United's second season syndrome. The year before, the Blades had been the Prem's biggest sensation, finishing 9th and earning their first promotion to the top flight in over 15 years. However, the 2020-21 season was the complete opposite. Sheffield United, led by Chris Wilder, set the record for the worst ever start to a season in the Premier League. The Blades went 16 games without a win from the start, with their first one coming in the end of January when United beat Newcastle. In the end, they finished 20th with 23 points and a respectable 63 goals conceded. Yes, they weren't the most defensive team in the league, but their attack, made up mainly of David McGoldrick and Ollie McBurney, scored a total of 20 goals all season. It was also a joint record for the fewest goals scored in a Premier League season. You can see the other team will share the record if you stay to the end. Number 4. Norwich, 21-22 and 2019-20. Much like Fulham over the last 5 years, Norwich are the perfect example of a yo-yo club, constantly getting relegations to the Championship and promotions to the Premier League. In fact, they currently have the chance to return to the elite, fight for a playoff spot in the Championship. Speaking of Norwich's 2 seasons in the Premier League, they were quite similar in terms of statistics. In 21-22, they finished with a goal difference of 56 and a total of 22 points. They were winless in 7 out of 10 months, with back-to-back wins over Brentford and Southampton in November, back-to-back wins over Everton and Watford in January, and a win over Burnley in April. When it comes to their performance in 2019-20, the Canaries were even worse. Despite being managed by a very respectable name in Daniel Farke for much of the season, they managed just 21 points, scoring 26 goals and conceded 75. Number 3. Huddersfield, 2018-19. And with the bronze medal, we have Huddersfield Town in the 2018-19 season. Truly one of the most disastrous campaigns by a club in a single season in the Premier League. And, unlike most of the aforementioned teams, Huddersfield didn't even have the players to avoid relegation for the second year running, as they did in 2017-18, when they finished 16th. The most notable names were defenders Matthias Jorgensen, now at Brentford, and Aaron Moy, who retired 2 years ago. Interestingly, Wolverhampton unleashed their inner Robin Hood against Huddersfield, losing twice and giving away more than 35% of their total for the entire season. Yes, the Terrys finished with 16 points, 22 goals scored and 76 conceded. Unfortunately for their fans, Huddersfield didn't even come close to promotion and are currently fighting for survival in the Championship. 2. Sunderland, 2002-03 and 2005-06. Yes, we have 2 candidates from the same team again, but the second one is far more disastrous. The 2002 season was a bad one for Sunderland. They went through 3 managers in the course of a season, with Peter Reid giving way to Howard Wilkinson, who then resigned to make way for Mick McCarthy. Reid was sacked in October after 7 years in charge and replaced by Wilkinson, who'd been out of management for almost as long as Reid. After slipping into the relegation zone on matchday 6, they remained there until Boxing Day. The last of their 4 wins came in mid-December, and Sunderland ended the season on a run of 15 consecutive defeats. Well, fast forward 2.5 years, and the Black Cats were promoted again. but they failed to win their first 5 games of the 2005-06 season, completing a nightmare run of 20 consecutive defeats. A record unbeaten even to this day. Yes, as you can imagine, Sunderland's fate was predicted after their first 5 games of the season, and this time it was even more disastrous. They finished 15 points beyond 19th place West Brom, having won just 3 games all season. But this is still not the worst team in the history of the Premier League. Because, number 1, Derby County, 2007-08. Yes, no team in the history of the Premier League was more shocked by their promotion from the Championship to the top flight than Derby County in 2007. Managed by Billy Davies and Paul Jewell, Derby were tipped by many to go straight back down to the Championship. There were even calls for them to be relegated as early as September, the second month of the season. In fact, it was in that month that the Rams recorded their only win of the season, a 2-1 victory over Newcastle United. After the 10 summer signings, Derby continued to be very active in the winter, making a further 11 additions, but that didn't change anything. In the end, the Rams finished the season with a record 11 points and 20 goals scored, a record they share with aforementioned Sheffield United. Speaking of the worst team in Premier League history, do you think that those 11 points will ever be equalled by another club? And as we approach the end of the season, do you think Sheffield United will be able to concede 13 more goals to better Swindon Town's record? Let us know in the comments section. And as usual, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and jump straight to some of our previous content. Bye for now, and I'll catch you in the next one. Hey GOF, some of those teams had absolute stinkers, mate.
Like and subscribe.